All right. We are back for episode 4 of the Ain't Done Yet podcast. If you haven't checked out our previous episodes, we've had my brother Adrian Patrick, our drummer Joe Connor, great friend Dr. Nateen Engineer on our prior 3 episodes. And today we are very excited to have Mr. Fernando Jones all the way from Chicago. Thank you for joining us on the Ain't Done Yet podcast.
Hey, man,
welcome, man.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for having me.
Yes.
Definitely. We're excited. We're excited to have you here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, this is my first podcast, and what better place to do it than to do it in Cincinnati? Oh, I mean Las Vegas.
Sin City.
Yeah.
Close.
Big time Sin City.
So I did that so they know that it's, that it's not an overdub or something like that.
Right.
We know we're in Las Vegas. You don't want to be too perfect. You're like, I am glad to be here in Las Vegas at 1, 2, 3, 4.
We already got that all out of the way during the testing, right?
Okay, right on. But it's really cool to be here. And to be a blues guy, I'm really glad to be here because too often blues has not been promoted to be in step with the times.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people don't realize that blues is like the foundation of rock and roll. Nobody knows that.
Yeah. And it has to grow, it has to evolve, and it has to take advantage of technology and take advantage of the sign of the times of what's happening, the social media piece, and to not be afraid to use these, these platforms, if you will, because you're always trying to get your message out and you're always trying to stay relevant and current and all that stuff. I always say, show me a purist and I'll show you a hypocrite,
Yeah.
Nice.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you are out here in Las Vegas. We met earlier this year at a convention,
right?
The NAMM convention.
That's right.
Which has come up on this podcast quite a few times now. This is a really special scenario. I love when synergy just takes it away, and before you know it, something has been born that you would have never imagined. But you were presenting at a panel for the nonprofit sector of NAMM. They were doing a series for 501c3s, charities, foundations, and you were presenting. The first thing I went to go see at NAMM was how to run a summer camp.
Yeah, I think that was cool. I love to share. I love to teach. I love to present. And it's really an extension of being on stage and trying to, communicate whatever that song is. And that particular day, the song that was being played was how to have or start a successful or run a successful summer camp. We've had some pretty good success with our 501c3, which is the Blues Kids Foundation, doing our summer program that turned into like a year program, doing different things in Chicago public schools. And I never want to be the only person that has information, so I love NAMM. The first time that I went to NAMM, I think was in 1988, 87 or 88.
Wow. Well, you got me beat. I'm a trade show guy.
Yeah. And it was at McCormick, the one that was on, we always get it, well, we called it McCormick. Yeah, McCormick Place, the one that was on the lake, the big dark brown or black building. I don't even know.
Was it out in Chicago back then?
Yes.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
I was not aware. I mean, it's been in San Diego for at least 20 years.
It was in the summer. It was in the summer. And that's a big shout out to my dear buddy, Ron Robertson. I graduated from college in 87. And so during that time, if you were a blues player, I guess even if you were older, especially a college kid, it was like being in a secret society. When you said, "Hey, man, I play the blues," either people, they would walk away from you, or it's like, "I play the blues too, man. I've got a strat." That's good, man. And so he and I bonded over that, and he was like, he had more guitars than I did, and Ron might have been maybe 3 or 4 years older than me because I was still like a kid in that college type age.
Okay.
And Ron was like a man, like a big brother type kind of a guy. And so he told me about it, and he took me to the NAMM show, and it was really cool. I got a chance to meet John Entwistle from The Who.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it felt like his hands. He shook my hand. His hands were like about this long.
No
Like
kidding.
about
You can reach every string.
He had some big hands, man.
Mhm.
And he was nice. He was cool. And it was like Disneyland for a musician.
Yeah.
And back then, I got a chance to meet Dan Smith,
Mm-hmm.
who is the guy who was on the team with Mr. Schultz, who brought Fender back from CBS.
Oh, okay.
And that was an interesting story. No, I met Dan.
You're a Fender guy. I mean, I was going to ask that question.
Yes,
Ryan over here is a Gibson guy.
Yes, well, that's
You're
cool.
a Fender guy.
That's cool.
Hey,
You know,
That's
and
cool.
you're a Telecaster guy, not a Strat,
Not
right?
a Strat. And I'll tell you, and I play.
Why is that?
For example, I love the Telecaster because, stereotypically speaking, every black player who plays a Stratocaster will inevitably be compared to Jimi Hendrix. And no matter how good or how terrible you are, you will never be better than a ghost of that memory.
Mhm.
You know, so I was in love with the Fender brand, and I thought that the Telecaster looked nice. I thought it was sexy, and the whole bit. And the first Telecaster that I bought, I got my first guitar February 6th, 1970, the day before my 6th birthday, and I started playing at 4.
That was your brother that gave that to you, right?
My uncle.
Your uncle.
Jackson.
And it was Sunburst.
It was
right?
Sunburst. He took me to Goldblatt's. That was like a low-end department store. You know, we had Sears, so Sears was like a little bit.
Sears and Roebuck, right?
Yeah, that was old school Sears.
Yeah.
Roebuck. That was a little bit top shelf. And then, you know, especially in the black community.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you had Marshall Fields, but they didn't. That was like top shelf, you know, clothing and things like that. But they didn't have musical instruments.
Mhm.
And I don't have my math together on Guitar Center, but this was before I knew what Guitar Center was. Our Guitar Center was on 95th Street. My brother Greg, who's 8 years older than me, he was the cat that was really instrumental. And when you have siblings at different parts of your life, one sibling or two of the mix will be closer to you than another, and then another phase of your life, this brother or sister will be closer to you. But he was the closest to me in my formative years, and he was he's no longer with us, but he was a quintessential big brother. He was, you know, multi-instrumentalist, like, you know, like I guess like what a person like a Prince would be or something like that.
Okay.
You know, he was handsome, he could sing, and he played his primary instrument. So if I was 4, he was 12. So that's my earliest memory of my brother and my family. And so, and I still have the keyboard that he played back then. It was a wordless. And all I remember was it was supposed
I think I saw a picture of that.
Yeah,
you showed a picture of it.
Yeah, so it's supposed to have been the same Wurlitzer that the cat that played with Santana had.
It's double stacked, right?
Double stack. And and now you're talking about a black family on the south side of Chicago living in an apartment that was part of white flight. You know, the Great Migration, 1915 to 1960, over half a million blacks migrated from the South, primarily Mississippi, blah, blah, blah. You know, either they got off the train on 63rd, they stayed on the south side. If they got off the train on Roosevelt, or we say Roosevelt Road, they went to the west side.
West side.
So it's still the same people. One brother get off on 63rd, one brother get off on Roosevelt. And
what was that migration all about? What was the reason? Was it jobs?
I'm glad that you asked that question. It was a number of things. It was a number of politically correct things to say, but the most important thing for the Great Migration was to get away from the South, which was still tantamount to slavery. You know, black men were not afforded an opportunity to be a black man and a head of a household in a situation like that. Because if you did something that the plantation owner or the white man at large didn't like, you know, he could send a crew. It might have been the Klan, or it might have been an unofficial group, pseudo Klan, that can come by your house and take your father out and beat him, even if he was 6'3" and 240. You know, he can't handle 5-10 guys with torches and a shotgun. So you take that beating so your son doesn't have to take it, even though they're after you. So now your son sees that his father, who he has looked at as being the disciplinarian of the family, getting whooped. The kid is not using the calculus of, well, my dad was outnumbered. The calculus is, my dad got beat up. He can't protect me. And then you had some that would stand up. Like we had a cousin.
So that was the mindset.
Oh, that was
right?
the mindset. It was coming, and I'm not a religious scholar, but, I guess many books, whether they're theological books or fiction or science fiction or nonfiction, everybody's trying to go north, right? So north was like freedom, in a proverbial way. So we had a cousin, my mother's cousin, Billy McNary is his name, but they thought people call him Billy Cummins, right?
Okay.
So, because back then Billy might have been about 6'2", 240. These country boys, they were big, 6'2", 6'3". In the 1940s, the 1950s, that was like being 7 feet tall. That was a big dude.
Yeah.
But he didn't take any stuff off of white folk, and a lot of times they would address white folk as white folk. They didn't even have a name. So if it was two people here, like you said something and say, now white folk, that ain't right. You said something, white folk, so white folk became their name, and so that became almost like a pejorative term. And so it's like, well, I'm Mr. Charlie. No, you white, right? So that's like, well, you're up there, too big for your britches or whatever. So Billy wouldn't take any stuff. So when they saw Billy walking up the road, it's like, Billy's coming. Mean it's going to be some trouble. So they say Billy's coming so much till people thought his name was Billy Cummins.
No kidding.
And then so you're looking at guys who were probably 13 to 16 years old that were man-sized that the South was too small for. So it's like, hey, look, it's best you send that boy north. They're going to kill him down. Not only going to kill him, it's going to bring heat on to my family. So part of that migration. The Chicago Defender with the Pullman Porters and the Chicago Defender, they would take papers down there. And then, I don't want to say propaganda, but it was a black paper. But it was like, hey, look, come to Chicago. The streets are paved with gold. And so, the streets down there weren't even paved at all. So it's like, hey,
let's get the hell out of here.
We're going to get out of here. So some came by train, some came by car, some hitchhiked, people like Willie Dixon, hoboed all the way to Chicago.
You knew Willie Dixon too,
yes,
right?
I did. Yeah, yes, I did. My nephew Chip and I were people die, people get in line and try to figure out who was the closest to him as if they only had one set of people in their life. But Marie Dixon, who I called Mama Dixon, his widow, she had my nephew Chip and I to stand. I stood at his head at the funeral, and Chip stood at the foot. Wow. So we were guarding the body because back then, I don't know, it was 91 or 92 or 93, whenever it was when he died. Because people were trying to put tapes in his casket, trying to make it a circus. Like, I'm going to put this tape in here. When you die, this tape's going to go to heaven, and I'm going to be, all crazy, bizarre stuff,
Yeah.
So we were really tight. My nephew Chip, Ron Robertson, who I mentioned earlier, and we came out here maybe in 91. He was living in Glendale, California.
Okay.
So we put together like some kind of little pseudo music fantasy tour where we ended up all roads led to him in Glendale, but we flew into Orange County, and I think this was my first time. Yeah, me and Chip's first time in California. Because when you're from Chicago, and back then when you think California, you think it's, they're different cities, but you think it's one California, you think it's sunny, you think every place is LA.
Right.
But we landed.
It's all LA.
we landed in Orange County. They had the big John Wayne statue, and it might have been 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. And we were just out of college, a year or two out of college, right? And the only money I had was my credit card, and the credit card was maxed. So when we came out here, nothing was. We had a plan, but it wasn't planned. And so
all of us at that age, we had a plan, but we didn't really have a plan.
So we went to get the rental car. Couldn't get the rental car, so the lady had to call from the car place and get an extension so we could get the car. So in the middle of the night, we drove from Orange County to San Francisco.
Okay.
Right? Cold as all get out.
Yeah.
And it was like...
That's a completely different atmosphere.
Man, so now it's about midnight, and you're watching, I don't know how long, what's the drive? 4 hours? 4 hours. 6 hours?
Yeah.
So we're driving, Chip and I a year apart, and he just made his transition about a year ago. Chip was my bass player, and I was his guitar player. We were more like brothers and nephew and uncle. So we were driving. I guess we were driving through the mountains. So you look outside the window, And it was like a Saturday Night Live skit because everything is like, it's like 9 different shades of black. And you see the mountains look like they're going by. And it's like, okay, this one is black and this one is off black and this is dark midnight black. Are we moving? Right. And so you're thinking you're going to go off a cliff or something like that. So we went up to San Francisco because at NAMM show, I'd met Jimmy Dunlop.
Okay.
An old man Jim Dunlop.
And that's a guitar pick.
That's right.
Dunlop,
That's right.
Yeah.
So this is how far my loyalty goes back to different people in these relationships and the impact NAMM has had on my life. So, and Jimmy and I are the same age.
Okay.
So part of going up there was to visit the Dunlop factory. So he took us on a tour, so I got a chance. Well, how we ended up meeting Jimmy, my brother Greg, it was during the NAMM show when they were in Chicago. And my brother Greg and I, we were going, and I was going to sit in with Buddy Guy. He was playing, Walter Payton had a club called the Americas Club or the Americas or something like that. So my brother Greg is real street smart, street savvy and stuff. So we're walking. I got my guitar on my back. And these 2 white guys come walking. They've got on trade show clothes.
Okay.
Tan pants or khakis or chinos or whatever they call them. They call them chinos? Pants?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, you don't want to use a word. And it's like, that's not a word. It's like, everything he just said is incredible. Then I got to turn into Charleston White. They did have that on. So people were like, it did happen that day. That Saturday night, it happened. Big shout out Charleston White. Charleston White got me in the podcast, man. Charleston White. Did I say Charleston Brown? Charleston White is a beast.
Yeah.
And I mean
awesome.
that in a good way. Big respect to that cat. So we're walking down the street, and so these 2 Eurocentrics, they come walking.
Okay.
Maybe a powder blue dress shirt, tan pants. So I read them as being detectives or undercover guys. It's like, man, these guys are square looking. And so old man Dunlop, Jim, and I say that respectfully, he said, where are you guys going? Because we were going like the same thing, but they were coming in on an angle. And I said, and I'm never really rude to people, but I'm trying not to get caught in a sting because I know my brother is street, and if these are the police, my brother's going to say something and we're going to get, you're thinking all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're thinking the direction you don't want it to go in the whole time.
So we're walking, right? And then so old man Dunlop, he says, what kind of guitar picks do you use? And I said, I only use Dunlop picks, right? So I'm looking at, I'm staring him down. So he goes to this pocket and he pulls out a handful of guitar picks. He said, which one do you like? And I'm looking at him. I'm waiting for the handcuffs now, right?
Yeah.
He says, I'm Jim Dunlop. And the old man and Jimmy were there together. And we hit it off like that. And
they busted. Cool. So they're dressed in these khakis, the light blue shirts. They just came from the show, right? They were out selling their picks at the trade show. And you just happened to bump right into them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're following you.
Yeah, but it was cool, man. And so we fell in love with each other, man. And so, like I say, so the next year, Chip and I, we came out here, we did the tour of the factory and the whole bit, and met Sam McCrae, who was their electronics guy, who did the pedals and stuff. And I have, if it's correct, I have one of 3 chrome top wah-wahs that they gave me one. Okay. Robert Cray and I think Stevie Ray had one.
Wow. Nice.
Not compare myself
only
to
chrome top. So there's only 3 chrome tops?
Well, that was made then.
Okay.
So they made it like prototype thing.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But that was the claim to fame to that, and they gave me a Rolo vibe. So it was cool. Then we went, and I knew NAMM has been good to me. So it's all cool because
it's safe
as
to
my
say
life
that
has come out,
you're a magic man at NAMM.
Yeah. All roads lead back to Brother Patrick here.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because you don't want to ever go to NAMM and it's like the last memory you had was 20-something years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and I'm getting excited because I was telling for the listeners at home or on whatever podcast piece that they're looking at, we're having fun talking because it's good to talk about things that you haven't talked about before. So that's what I'm digging about because these are stories that I've never shared. There's no need to because who cares, right?
Right.
So I met Rich Friedrich. He was with Dean Markley.
Okay.
Back then.
And this is you're going back circa like 1990.
This is 90.
Mm-hmm.
This is 90.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I met Rich in 90 because my book came out in 90. So this must have been 91 when I came back out here with because I was somebody. I had arrived, right?
Yeah.
So I met Rich, and at the end of NAMM back then, they would give stuff away at the end of NAMM or sell it to keep from shipping it back.
Right. Yep.
They
still do that to this day too. I have a lot of clients that are like, hey, they'll sell off whatever those parts are.
Yeah.
Guitars.
But the union thing got in, and that's what ran it out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
union is strong,
and I'm
Chicago.
Union, and I'm all because I'm a member of the American Federation of Musicians for over 30 years. So I'm all about union,
sure,
all of every way, shape, form, or fashion. So I'm not knocking it, but that was one of from my understanding from Dan Smith, that was the understanding, the reason why it left Chicago, because back then, if I was at a booth here and I was playing piano, and you were a booth over there and it was a guitar and an amp and we want to jam, you could bring that amp over here as long as, the people didn't mind it.
They don't want you picking that up and moving it.
You can't do it,
right.
And so what they did, according to Dan Smith, the last year that they were there was like a silent protest boycott type thing where they still paid you had to, whatever the tax was for the Teamsters or whatever the built-in cost was. The Teamsters really, or whatever the union title of them, really kind of got paid free because they didn't have them do anything. They didn't have them move the amp from over here, So, and the politics, whatever the mayor was in Chicago at the time, I don't know if it was daily, but I wish that it could come back to Chicago, but it's such a great fit in Anaheim in January, but I wish that it could come back to back to Chicago.
So there's an American Federation of Musicians?
Yes, there is.
How do you join that? I want to get in that.
Every city has one. So there's a law. So the American Federation of Musicians is the professional musicians organization for America and Canada.
Wow.
And in Chicago, I'm in a unique union because we are the only union that had a black union and a white union. It was segregated.
Okay.
The local 10208, and they merged. So it's, so it became one union. So the blacks had to fight to have one. So Chicago is rich with black folks standing up for music and DEI, diversity and equitable inclusion.
Yeah.
So they've been doing that a long time. So going back to Rich, met Rich. Rich gave me a whole bunch of guitar strings. A lot of that stuff I still have. I still have the container with the picks that Jimmy and them gave me and stuff. Rich died a year or two after that. So, but before he died, we came up and we visited. I don't know. I think is it somewhere around San Jose? I don't know where it was, but we visited that factory. Then we visited the Mesa Boogie factory.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Man. So we were making our way coming back down.
My first ever guitar I had
coming back down.
Triple rectifier Mesa Boogie.
So
that's cool.
So we did that, and then we ended up in Corona because Fender was in Corona. Then they went to Mexico. Then they came back on Cessna Circle. Cessna Way or Cessna Circle was.
They still make them in both places now. I think their lower line they make in Mexico and their higher line they make in the States, right?
Yeah, but I'm just giving the back line for people that are watching home. No, it wasn't. You have to give those staple marks and stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
So
we're following your lead, man. You know the rules.
It's all good. It's all good. And I do my one of my most beautiful music stories and NAMM stories, because this piece here is probably pro NAMM and promote NAMM bigger than what I got happening for the blues, because it's a community. Mm-hmm. And I always try to promote and tell musicians in Chicago, man, you got to go to NAMM. You got to join the union and stuff. But when people are not involved, they think that you're crazy. You're like the guy,
You're the outsider that doesn't know what they're talking about.
What's in it for you, Fernando?
Right.
You meet a dude like this, dude like that,
So well, that's the truth, man. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't mean to interrupt, but the magic of NAMM, the magic of NAMM is just something that
it's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
I think we have a crazy story. Why don't you tell our story real quick there, Ryan, on NAMM in our coffee break?
On our drive up here, I was telling Fernando about Bill Swick and how I came up, and and this ties into what you've been doing with the youth too, and sharing your knowledge. And Bill Swick gave us the opportunity as teenagers to go to NAMM. So as teenagers, we were able to go and travel to NAMM. It was our field trip, and it was the most exciting piece ever. That might have been actually one of the breakthrough moments for me as a young artist, where I said, oh my gosh, I'm in Disneyland right now. And I'm walking by.
How old were you at that time, Ryan? 15, 16?
15, yeah.
15?
Yeah, 15 years old. And, and then we kept going to NAMM, like you're saying, go to NAMM. A lot of people have don't go to NAMM. No, go to NAMM.
Go to NAMM. I mean, it's the only place on earth that you could be a nobody, even though everybody is somebody for the politically correct people out there. But you can go like me, a nobody, and you walk this way and you walk past Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And I walked, and I had my harmonica, blew my harmonica, and Stevie stops, speaks to you.
I'd have probably passed out myself, honestly.
Or you see Verdine White from Earth, Wind, and Fire, or you see the cats that played with Prince, or you see Sheila E. walking around just as a regular person.
Yeah.
And 1,000 other people that you don't know who they are. I saw some little guy, I know it wasn't a cat from Green Day, but I saw a guy walking by, and he was dressed up like he was rock and roll, young cat, probably wasn't 24, but he leather, and it had like some skeleton-like looking design on and stuff, but he was sharp for what he was rocking. And I looked at the guy and said, man, that guy's, he's himself.
Yeah.
And then the next day you see the poster of the guy by some guitar thing or something, whatever. And it's so cool, man. It's so cool because everybody's guard is down. Like I got a chance to meet Lee Clark, great bass player, played with everybody. Probably most famous in his latter years of MTV, in the video with Sussudio with Phil Collins. Earliest playing with James Taylor, played with everybody. Oh, yeah. And the cool thing, people will see you.
Yeah.
After you go a year or two, it's a family reunion.
Everybody,
man,
hey, how's it going?
Look, and you make friends, and it's like, okay, hey, cool. Look, I'm gonna keep in touch with Ryan. And you get home on the plane, and life kicks in, and you forget. And then when you come, and when you're on the plane coming back, you think about the people that you were gonna get in touch with, but didn't, and you see each other, and you pick right back up.
Right where you left off.
I was walking in NAMM 2, the NAMM, right, because this was the one after the pandemic, right? This in January.
Yes.
So the one of 2020, because the pandemic hit like roughly March. Well, it was before that, but officially shut down March.
We played that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm walking and I see this beautiful young lady who's probably about 5'3", 5'4", and I had some of my shirts, and I, trying to promote. And I walked up to her, and I say, "Sister, you sharp." And I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "I'm Shantae." It was Shantae Moore.
Wow. Yeah.
Just regular, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. I mean,
We were standing in the back of the Gibson booth. We were just talking about this on one of the last podcasts with his brother, and we're just standing in the back of the Gibson booth because Ryan was sponsored by Gibson. Still is. And so you were getting ready to do some promo there in the back of the booth, and we're just standing there, and Adrian, Ryan's brother, picks him right out, and it's Robbie Krieger. Robbie Krieger's standing there. He's got his guitar right over his shoulder, and we're like, got to get a picture with Robbie Krieger. So they went over there, nicest guy in the world, most incredible guy in the world, and just no problem
and
at all.
It's a candid picture too. It's not, we didn't pose. We were just talking to him.
That's cool.
And he's talking to us, and he's got his guitar on. It's one of the coolest pictures ever.
I know.
Happened at NAMM.
Because see, the guards are down, and it's really
everybody's it's a camaraderie, right?
Well, it's like if you're there, you're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people don't, it's not like, because a lot of these people, you will never hardly ever be able to get to see, like I'm saying, just, Sheila, something like that, or, a sister or Mr. Escovedo. Anytime you see those people, it's in star mode.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a buffer, and it's going to be a suspicion of what do you want.
Well, and there's usually handlers too, right? That are just keeping people from their distance.
But you see them, and they're nice, and they're normal and stuff. because it's about the music.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And that's one of the things that the NAMM show brings to you. And it makes me a better musician every time I go, because you're going to see or hear guys that's 99 times better than you. But you realize that you're 99 better than somebody else, but you learn and you get better. You learn about products. And then you learn when you go home, you realize that it is okay to be you. It is like what Ryan said, it's a field trip, man. And you go through this, you go through, the jealousy, why he's got that and I don't have it. And it comes around to the love fest with your friends and all this kind of stuff. And then it closes off. Ooh, it's good to be me. Can't wait till next year.
Was that your first NAMM, the story? I'm going to tell Fernando right now. That was your first NAMM, wasn't it?
That was my first NAMM, like going to NAMM, not for trade shows, right? Just going for NAMM for the music side of it. But yeah. Why don't you
So we were at
that
NAMM,
story down?
It was probably 2015. Otherwise was playing the Grove. We had a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of heat on the band. One of the nights we were up until 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. for the, at the Hilton. We had a room up at the Hilton, right?
Partying with
Marriott or Hilton, either way.
All the biggest names, all in one room. Got securities coming up to the room, and we're all just sitting there creating music. The musicians were literally all creating music.
We were just
and security kept coming up
time.
you guys got to keep it down. You guys got to keep it down. And everybody's just jamming. Oh, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. 5 minutes later, volume goes back up, and everybody's just in there creating.
Yeah. So I had found out, something came up and I text my instructor, Bill Swick.
Okay.
Because I'm telling the stories like, guys, I used to come here as a teenager. Now we're sitting at the top suite, blah, 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 doing the thing. And he's like, oh, great. Okay. You come at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. the breakfast session. We'll be doing Las Vegas Academy. We'll be doing something. You show up at 7 a.m. And I was like, I can't not show up. We have to show up. We have to go see Mr. Swick. And so we sleep for 30 minutes. My brother doesn't get up. None of the other bandmates get up. But John is like, all right. I was like, I have to go.
Right.
There's not many people I honor and actually wake up early for.
Yeah.
John being one of them most of the time.
Yeah.
Mr. Swick being another. And so we're like, all right, we gotta go. We're practically stumbling through.
It was a super late night, and the drinks were pouring. And it was super, super early morning when we went to bed.
So I'm trying to, and it's in the same hotel. It's in one of the convention areas, and I'm like, okay, man, we gotta. But we're running.
But we don't know where.
We don't know where it is.
We think we do.
We're cutting through like the kitchen areas. We're going through these random doors. Like, okay, let's go this way. This will get us closer. No, nothing here. And we're like, man, we need coffee. We need coffee, man. Oh, stumbling this way, stumbling that way. And then all of a sudden, we just cut through another door. And then we're in a big old kitchen. And I swear to you, Fernando, there's nobody in this kitchen. You look that way, nobody. It's quiet. Look that way, nobody. It's quiet. Right in front of us in this empty kitchen is 2 cups and a pot. And we took a moment. We're like looking at each other like,
is this a dream?
There's no way there's coffee in there. But this is it's like in the desert. We're searching for water. We're like, we just need coffee. And I was like, there's no way. There's no one around here. It's silent. Like it hasn't started yet. And like the cups were turned upside down. I'm like, grab that pot. Turn the pot. That beautiful black coffee steaming, coming out just enough. 2 cups.
2 cups.
And woke you up, just the fact that you were able to get it brought you to life.
Just 2 cups. It was
we wouldn't have been alive had we not had it.
Bloop, 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 bloop. The video game continued. The journey continued. And we got to the room, huge packed auditorium. He was presenting, and we're sitting way in the back. And I didn't know he was going to do this. But then Mr. Swick, and he's always honored me. Like I showed you the door. He's always, we still to this day, he's a mentor to me for Life by Music, and I'm indebted to him. He said, a kid back in the day, one of our students, Yeah.
It was your first NAM. It was his first NAM. It was his first year, right? And your first year.
It was our first, and he was.
And it was a 10-year anniversary, wasn't it?
2016. It was that.
Yeah,
wow,
that's what it was, man.
Okay, yeah.
So I drank more coffee that morning than you did.
Yeah, I was not catching up. We're sitting in the back, and Mr. Swick says, in front of this huge auditorium, Ryan Patrick, Ryan Boylan, well, where are you in the auditorium? Can you stand up, please? And I'm sitting in the back with my shades on, like trying to drink the coffee and turn the lights on, like, Ryan, stand up. And then I had to stand up and wave, and it's just, that's one of the most, he said, this student of mine 10 years ago said one day, and I did say it, I was pretty cocky. I was like, I'm going to be at one of these booths. I'm going to be the rock star. I want to do this. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, Gibson and everything, we were performing and we were doing it. Mm-hmm. And so he used me as an example. As 10 years later, my student is here and had to stand up. So it was just like, let alone the magic it was for me, the magic for JB and I to just go through everything we're doing. And that's the beauty of NAM. And just this NAM, this year, you were the first guy I met there. After how many years have you been to NAM? How many years have I been to NAM?
Yeah.
Now we get to sit together. We get to learn about you.
Yeah.
We get to have your amazing foundation come and do curriculum with the kids in Las Vegas, teach them the blues. And it's all because of NAM.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit, kind of start. How did you started to touch on it a little bit, how you got involved with music. Okay. But kind of give us that background. Give us that story.
I'll give you that. I just wrap up my last little NAM piece. Mm-hmm. Meeting Dan Smith was a pivotal Fender moment in my life. So I met Dan in 1990 at the NAM in 1990.
Okay.
So David Carlson, a friend of mine, we were doing a film, 16 millimeter black and white film, inspired by the book that I wrote. I was there when the blues was red hot. So I had 2 NAMs under my belt or so. And so Fender freak, right? So after having my little gold,
is that because guitars, of Muddy and because
it was not because of Muddy. No, it was because.
Or is it just all tone?
No, it was. I'm not a guitar technician.
Okay.
I mean, I can't tell from the different sounds. Some records back in the day, what was a Fender sounding guitar versus a Gibson sounding guitar. It's probably because I'd seen the players and knew that's probably what they were playing. Mm-hmm. But when I was coming up, all my education comes from my formative years. The cool guys on 60th Street that would come play in our apartment, who my brother Greg played, the cool guys played Strats. Okay. I don't even know if I'd ever seen a I'm thinking about the first Telecaster that I probably saw was and I'm just thinking about this, is when Tito Jackson, he had a white Telecaster. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they won a Kel Burnett show or something, but the Jacksons, they had on white pants or something or whatever, and he had a white telly. And I thought that was sweet.
That just had to be it.
And then in the Sears catalog, they had, it wasn't a telly, but it looked like a telly-shaped body. This might have been around 76.
Telly-shaped body is a little bit wider than a Strat, right? I mean, Strat is kind of a little bit more slender body.
It looks like a cutie pie to me. I guess they all look like women, or whatever.
You're definitely right about that. That's why they're so sexy.
So yeah. And it fit what I was trying to do, right? But when I was little, I wanted a Strat because the cats had Strats. Steve Criquet and those guys who were great players, they had Gibsons, right? But to me, and B.B. King had a Gibson. But to me, that looks like kind of like, this is not your father's Oldsmobile. They look like old people instruments.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, I mean, that was a standard design. Classic. That was a classic design. And people have, some people, I'm a Cadillac guy, some people love Lincolns, and some people love Mercedes Benzes, and some people love BMWs. Yep.
Some of those parts might even be made in the same place, but you like what you like. Some people like 40s, some like Stacey Adams. I'm a Stacey Adams guy.
I had some Stacey Adams back in the day,
Jack
man.
Daniels,
they were sharp.
A Wild Turkey, whatever, rock and roll guys, Jack Daniels, so we're branded. You know what I mean? Because obviously if you can play, You can play a guitar from Walgreens. And,
I mean, isn't that incredible though? That and that's how marketing works, right?
Yeah.
Is that, and you learn this stuff as you're growing up,
right? So I'm gonna go back on these guitars. So James Duffy Dyer, he's 2 years older than me, so he must have been in 6th grade, and I was in 4th grade. Now this is the first time I saw somebody in my age group with a real guitar. Because remember, I was playing Goldblatts and Sears. Guitars that your mother gets you from Christmas or your father gets you for Christmas. He had a black Strat. He still has it today.
Okay.
And the headstock looked like this is 1976.
Okay.
And he had the beautiful case. I'd never seen a real guitar case before, because when people come by the house, the guitars were already out and stuff like that. And it was like the red looking, velvety looking thing. And he had a soap bar in there that he would wash his hands before he would play the guitar. I was like, man, what is this, the Holy Grail? And I would try to hold it, man. It felt like it was 99 pounds. And so
those are solid because they were solid wood.
Yeah, mahogany.
Yeah,
I think his was mahogany. Yeah. And keep in mind, I know nothing about. I mean, I know a maple neck from a rosewood neck, but I know a volume knob and a tone knob. I can play, but I didn't. I started playing so young and unorthodox. I didn't know that. Okay, pattern yourself after somebody. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know, you can have a career being B.B. King III or Jimi Hendrix I or Stevie Ray Vaughan Jr. I didn't know that. I was just trying to keep up with my brother. So even in my playing, even though I listened to...
Was it just so far away from you that you didn't think that position was reachable?
No, I didn't have enough information to even think that far because my brothers were the greatest people that I knew. Because my brother, I looked up to him. My brother was handsome, and my other brother was handsome, and he was a man's man, knockout type kind of black dude. And those are the guys you want for your big brother. So all you want all your life is to be one of your brothers. You want to be in that fraternity, and you want to do whatever it is to hang out with them. So like Greg, being 8 years older than me, his band, they were playing rock and roll, some blues, but rock and roll. You look at the historical perspective in music, my brother, Big Flo, he was born in Mississippi. So they were Chess Records listeners.
Okay.
Muddy Waters. So you listen to that
Muddy
stuff.
Waters, yeah.
My folks are from Mississippi, so they were listening to Stax, stuff like that. My nephew Chip, a year younger than me, he was listening to Motown. My godmother Sharon in the 70s, she was listening to the Philadelphia sound. So when I was over at their house, I'm listening to the Philadelphia sound. When I'm listening to Greg, I'm listening to Acid Rock, Iron Butterfly, Jimi Hendrix. I remember listening to the radio when they said that Jimi Hendrix died. I was in the car with my brother. And as a child, I mean, I don't know what, as a 4 or 5 or whatever, but the innocence of a child, and I knew who Jimi Hendrix was because my brother had the records. And as a kid, my brother said, man, he was supposed to do a show here or something. So I don't know if it's factual that he was supposed to come or eventually he would come to Chicago. And so what I told my brother Greg, I said, now, I didn't understand death. And I said, what are they still going to have him to come and they're going to put strings on it? I'm thinking like a child. I'm thinking like a puppet. I knew from the radio, I knew death meant the end, but I didn't know what the death meant in eternal.
Not here anymore.
But I kind of knew that if you have a show, the show must go on. So if he's got a show coming, they got to put strings on him. And I'm a kid.
Yeah.
I'm 5-some years old. I'm a kid, So I remember, I was a kid who was in a world of a person 8 years older than me. So what he did, and he was probably in a world with people 4 years older than him because he was advanced. With that organ that I talked about, that Wurlitzer, my earliest memory of him is 12, and a lot of people, they brag on their.
Were your parents musical? Just jumping on that because how did you have that there? So that was because of your brother. You had that there,
just because of that. And every black family that migrated from Mississippi has got somebody that can out-sing the singers that are on television. That's just something, did they pursue a career? No, but they, it's like,
but they got some pipes.
Is Bobby Joe, oh yeah, it's natural.
Well, wasn't that was a huge thing, especially in the South, right?
Yeah.
Why people would congregate at churches, right? Because that was a place to escape.
And music was all part of code. For black folks, and not all black folk were slaves, but for those who had the residue of slavery, that became, code, a way to communicate and so forth. So fast forwarding these guitars and stuff. So my brother had a friend, I just found out his name was Daryl or something like that, but they called him Moscow.
Okay.
And I said, why they call him Moscow? Because
he's from Russia.
No, he's a black dude. He always was talking about Russia, so it was signifying, calling him Moscow. This is the early 70s.
Okay.
So he had a powder blue, don't even tell me what the color of it is called. Don't even tell me, it'll come to me. Placid.
Okay.
And I'm going to buy one before I die, even though I'm a Strat guy. He had a placid blue Stratocaster, a Telecaster, Stratocaster. And of course, they said, don't bother. Mm-hmm. And then I would play on it, and Greg, would bust me and hit me in the chest and all this kind of stuff. But it was the most beautiful thing. It was like a Spike Lee movie. It was like I was on a track being drawn to it. So being branded with that whole Fender name. And I always wanted to get a Strat. I've got one Strat. And when I did my camp at the Fender Center in Corona, they made one for me. But, fast forwarding, in college, I bought my first Fender guitar, which was a Telecaster.
Okay.
And it was the contemporary Telecaster. Mm-hmm. The white, the pearl white, with the black headstock and the rosewood fretboard. So that was the cover of that. It was a picture taken, and that was the cover.
I've seen that picture. Right? Alex, you might even be able to pull that picture up. I believe it's on his website.
So check this out.
It's a super sweet picture,
so
too.
So check this out. So I go to the NAMM show. Mm-hmm. This night I'm bouncing around, showing you how I got to Fender Street, right?
Okay.
So you're at the trade show. Everybody's got on these tan pants I talked about and blue shirts. These white guys, these white guys that are running these companies that really want to be back at the company and not at the trade show. Mm-hmm. So, and I've never been an aggressive person, probably more timid when it comes to public communication and meeting people and stuff. So I kind of use humor to make it comfortable. So you're getting a scoop. You're going to get whatever award you can get for a podcast. You're going to get it, bro.
Okay, right on.
So I come up to this one guy, and I'm probably talking on the volume like this here. Hello, sir. But I'm talking loud, but I'm timid because I'm in heaven. I'm at the Fender booth.
Yeah.
And for people that haven't been to the NAMM show, it's like the auto show for musicians. Mm-hmm. These displays, man, it's like being a superhero.
Yeah.
So I walk up to this one guy and I have my book. And I said, sir, we're doing a film on the blues. This is a book that I wrote, and I want to see if Fender would donate. So I'm begging and backtracking because I'm scared, right?
Right.
So the guy looks at me. So I'm 20-something years old, and this guy's a man. He's 45 years old, stuff, He looks at me like I'm nothing. But it mm-hmm. wasn't racial.
Yeah.
Because I know when white folks are racist,
mm-hmm.
Or whatever. Mm-hmm. We all do, all the brothers.
Yeah.
So it's just like the guy was like, man, this is not a giveaway store. So
we're trying to sell guitars here.
So he blew me off.
Okay.
So he said, hey, man, talk to him. Uh-huh. So the guy turned around, and I walked up to the him. I give him the same thing. The volume start off, then it comes down, and he goes,
right.
The guy takes the book. The guy's Dan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
The Telecaster that I'm playing is the guitar that Dan Smith designed.
He designed it, yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
I didn't know that at the time.
Yep.
So I'm talking to Dan, and I'm the master of talking myself out of a deal. The master, the best. Lee Oscar, met Lee Oscar at the NAMM show. I'm going to get back to Dan. Back then, Lee Oscar had a table and maybe some kind of bookshelf, and, his harmonicas, this cases are modular, mm-hmm. And he was just getting it off the ground. I blew something for him, and he grabbed the harmonicas, and they were all modulars, probably all the keys, and he went to give them to me. And I told Lee, I said, well, I don't want to get you in trouble with the boss. He looked at me like I was nuts and then put them back up there. But then he came out and jammed with me at the checkerboard. And that's all documented that night. But anyway, so back to Dan.
Fantastic. Though.
So back to Dan. Cool. So I said, now I want them to give me some guitars. I don't know anything about, I didn't have a foundation. I didn't know anything about charitable giving, anything like that. I just know if I got a Fender.
Sponsorships or anything, right?
I just know if I got a Fender thing, I've arrived because I can play good enough to get somebody's attention. If somebody's giving attention away, I can play as good as anybody else that got attention, even if it's the worst person that you gave the attention to.
Sure.
So Dan is looking at me. And I said, man, I'll even take that rug. So it was a Fender rug. And if you see a little clip of me doing my tune, how many times, there's a Fender rug that's rectangular shaped. It's black and white, but it was a red rug with the Fender logo. I was just like a Fender freak. It's like somebody's freakish about a Harley Davidson. So he looked at me, he rolled the rug up, and I took the rug, and then, it ended up being in a film shoot. So the next year, so it'd been 91. So that's when I did the California trip to work my way back down to Old Man Dixon. Mm-hmm. And then we went to Corona. So when we went to the office, me, Chip, and Ron Robertson to Corona, and we met with Dan, and I'm saying this respectfully, Dan.
And Dan invited you down, or did you go I'm going there?
I called.
Okay.
I called. I faxed, and I said, we're doing a tour, of these different factories and stuff like that. And so, but Dan stuttered, right? So probably one of the reasons that Dan didn't, shoo me away, because he was probably composing himself, right? Mm-hmm. But Dan was my brother. I'm not saying that in an insulting way, because my father had that type of a thing. So anyway, so when we're there, me, Chip, and Ron, he told me, he said, that book that you gave me? I said, yeah, so you get defensive. You wonder if it was something that was terrible in the book or offensive. And he said, the guitar on that book, he said, I designed that. So that was part of the series when Schultz and Dan, because Dan was with Yamaha.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so they put the team together and brought it back from CBS. And that was part of the first thing with Fender coming back with that contemporary.
Interesting.
So he had, I use this word, falling in love with me just for his like, man, this guy's playing and wearing a piece of my art. So we hit it off.
Right.
So anytime I would come to California, I would stay with Dan and Sylvia and his son is Jason, is a master bass builder at Fender and stuff.
No kidding.
When
Dan, like father, like son, then, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when Dan passed,
there you go.
Yep. Is that Jeff Beck with him? Yeah,
that's
Dan
like
and
him,
Jeff Beck. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. And Dan and I, we were close enough that Dan's last medical procedure before he passed away, I was at his bedside.
Oh wow.
Wow. That's how close we were.
Wow.
And to have a man like that to believe in a little guy like me who was nobody made me somebody.
Sure.
And so he would send me the guitars. And then so, still going back and forth, new guys come into these companies and stuff. Then you kind of like, they bring their people in the whole bit, but I'm still a Fender guy and, got a little connection.
Yeah. They, as soon as somebody leaves and another guy comes in, I mean, I know you've dealt with that too at Gibson, because you had your agents that were there that got you everything, and then they'd leave, somebody else would come in, you'd have to build that relationship again, right?
Yeah. But so that's what Dan means. So fast forwarding, so this rich relationship between Mr. Patrick and myself, I think is wonderful, because that continues that legacy with Dan. Mm-hmm. And next year, he will be in my conversation. We're talking about how wonderful he is, and you will be in my conversation about the NAMM piece. So everything that I've done always goes back to that 4-year-old boy that wanted to be like his big brothers, that would just want to play guitar. And, you go through different phases in life where it's like, okay, I want to play guitar because I want to play loud. I want to play fast. Or I want to be heard. And then you realize I really want to be accepted by my brothers. And so it kind of like took a lifetime to get to that point. Now, how do you get to blues camp? Glad that you thought that question.
Yeah.
Being that little kid and carrying that little 4-year-old kid from the south side of Chicago with me every day. One day, I brought my guitar. I started off my professional teaching career as a substitute teacher in Chicago Public Schools.
Okay.
So I had my guitar with me, and when you're a sub or were a sub, I don't know how it is now. The teachers, they if they know they're going to be absent, they have a lesson.
His brother was subbing for a while too.
Yeah. And they say, you do this. And somehow I finished whatever had to be finished by 1:30. I think school was out at 2:15 or something like that. But I had enough time at the end of it. And I just started playing my guitar, and the kids loved it. Mm-hmm. And so then I came up with the idea, and I called my nephew Chip and say, man, I want to do a program,
What year was this?
This was 1988.
Okay.
This is 1988.
Great. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying too earlier that that Ryan, sees you at NAMM, and now he has a new mentor to look up to because of his whole Life by Music.
Wow, that's cool.
So it's so awesome to see that you guys got to meet out there. And
it's important to know, as if I am in fact a mentor to him, that I still have mentors. Because sometimes people that are mentors, they make it seem like if they snapped their finger and they begot themselves. But there have been some people that have been very instrumental even the people that didn't like me and dogged me. I guess that's part of mentorship too, even though it wasn't the kind that you wanted, right. Pledging or something. So I told Chip, because Chip was a beautiful guy. I'm like a big mouth. Chip was funny, but Chip like comedic funny and stuff. But Chip didn't talk as much as I did because Chip was smart. Chip, take everything in and synthesize it and stuff. So I think I've always been a creative person because I draw and illustrate and paint and stuff like that.
I've seen some of your from your works, and it appears that you've done it actually in Illustrator. It looked like vector artwork.
I've done that, but I've done freehand stuff too. There's if you go to FernandoJones.com/art, I've got an acrylic piece that looks like a real dude.
Pull some of that stuff up, Alex, if you could.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got some abstract stuff there. I've been doing the vector stuff lately because it's more thought provoking. Yeah, go down. Click. Okay, that was a recent piece. That was Cap.
This is some of
Kaepernick. That was just a sketch on something that I did on Bootsy.
Wow.
I created my logo. Okay. That's on my wall in my office. Wait, you can go faster.
That's your book cover. There, right?
Yeah, that's in my house somewhere. That was a Hendrix
That's
thing.
a Jimmy. Yeah.
Beautiful.
You could see that.
That was a muddy, but I got one that's really, really good. Really, really good. Wait. Why is it all the way at the end? Okay, you can keep going. You go fast. I'll stop it. Keep going.
Multi-talented man here.
Right?
Yeah, that was a telly that I designed whenever Fender comes knocking.
Go back to that one, Alex. I want to see that real quick. The telly. There it is.
Yeah, so that would be called the FJ1S.
FJ1S.
Oh. It probably was at the front, and so now it's going to be all the way.
Just come first full circle, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're even messing around with typography too, huh?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Fernando with the Fender Fender logo.
Where? Okay, he can go faster.
Oh, that's a cool one too. Look at
that. Did something for my fraternity. Where is it?
That's big time multifaceted there, man. You got the Blackhawks fan.
Yeah.
Cubbies fan or White Sox?
Sox, man.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going. I'm trying to. Big shout out to Cap Alpha Psi, my frat.
I love that.
That's awesome.
We're proud of our fraternity as
well. We'll that's not this.
Could you imagine
right there? That's right there. Go. That's right there.
There it is.
Oh,
wow, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
How long did it take you to do that piece?
Probably less than 2 days. Because everything I do it and I go on to something else.
Okay.
And then I make an abstract painting where instead of just washing the brush off, I make, save the paint onto another canvas.
That's great.
Well, yeah.
That's fantastic.
So I drew it out probably 20 minutes. Then I make, a big stencil of it, then transfer it and knock it on out.
You trying to replicate somebody in particular here?
No. I saw a postcard. And it almost looks like my old man a little bit. But yeah, that's all. It was somebody sent a postcard for something. And it sparked and inspired that.
That should be called The Man Who Couldn't Find His Guitar.
The Man Who Couldn't.
There it is.
Oh, yeah, look how sad
The Man Who Couldn't Find His Guitar. I like it. So,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Our designer, who does a lot of our design work here, is an incredible guitar player.
Cool,
and it's funny how it just transitions. If you have creative, if you have creative ability, it transfers into all different types of art.
Well, being a baby, the baby of the family, when you come up almost like an only child.
Mm-hmm.
And then therefore your parents are older, so they don't have time to goo gaga you. So you have to learn how to not get in your own way. My father smoked cigars, so he would bring cigar boxes home and I would turn the cigar box over and draw a baseball diamond on it, and cut a little straw and take a little piece of tissue. I'd have like the diamond and I have but now they've manufactured these type games, but I didn't know. And I would have, if it falls in this square, it's a home run. If it falls in this square, and I would just thump the little thing. And I'd never even seen that anywhere.
Wow.
It's creative.
Yes. When I got to high school, people making those field goal games where you kick the thing. They were creative too. So it's
we used to sit on our desks with that, and you'd have your you'd have your pencil or whatever, and you put up your goalpost, right?
Right.
Yeah, when teacher wasn't looking, you throw up your goalpost.
Yeah. So it was just being creative, and so one day I'm writing a song, one day I'm recording a song, one day I'm drawing, one day I'm sketching, one day I'm writing a play. So almost everything I do it in a day, because it's like, I guess like a person that overeats, I'd knock it out that day, because tomorrow, like, okay, I'm going to work on this picture here today and I'm going to come back to it tomorrow. But I'm also a person that can stay up for 36 hours without drugs or food or anything like that, because I can get engaged in my work. You know what I mean? And I don't know how people are creative and they live within a 9 to 5 world and they go to bed at 10 o'clock. I mean, go to bed at 8 o'clock.
No, if I'm working on a piece, and I have a design background myself, and if I'm working on something, I have to stay up to finish it. I can't, because if I wake up in the morning, everything that I was thinking about, that I was in at that moment, is gone.
Right. And you got, you got to knock it out right where you have it. Then the phone is not ringing, between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning. And you can get more done in them 6 hours, or how many hours that is, than you can do with 3 days. Because in the regular part of the day, your life is going to, the phone is going to ring. Somebody's going to be in an accident,
Weekends and late nights. Well, even when my kids were younger, I'd wait for everybody to go to bed.
Yeah.
And then I'd be up on the computer. I mean, I designed a couple of your album covers in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Once everybody was asleep, because there was no distractions.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna bring it on home. And so creating that Blues Kids piece, remembering that was, once me, and somebody just wanted to play with other kids. And so I told Chip, I'm always thinking creative. It's like, okay, it's going to be blues. There's going to be kids involved. Okay, so it's Blues Kids. And I saw something with Boy Scouts of America.
Okay.
And I said, okay, Blues Kids of America sounds like it's been around for 100 years.
That's a great
marketing. And it sounds like it's endorsed
pitch.
by
America.
the United States of America.
Yeah.
And that's how I was born. And then fast forwarding to 2010, 29,
so
I created
that's so
Camp.
Simple.
Yeah.
But so just right in the pocket.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And then when the .com stuff came, then you try to secure a domain. It's like, okay, cool. I can get the name Blues Kids, right? .com. And then came up with the Blues Camp, and with the foundation, and we've done it everywhere from it. And the West Coast has been very supportive for us, because we started out the first year. Our camp was at Columbia College. There's been one. This is our 15th year. But we just did one that first year. Kicked off on the Sunday, the 4th of July, through that Friday in 2010. Then the next year we had Houston Tillerson in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas. Which are the names, and not to be confused with Houston as in the city. And then we were brought out here to California. Well, I know this is in California, but brought to the West Coast. So the West Coast has been really good to us. And to
well, you've gone as far as Japan too, right?
London and Japan as well too. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this question: is there, when Bruce Lee brought karate and martial arts to the United States, there was a big uproar about that, because they didn't want him teaching that to white folk, to other races per se. Do you find that when you're teaching outside of the United States?
No, I think one of the things that I have, I mean, whether people dig me or not, if they don't like me, they don't like me because it's Fernando. I mean, maybe it's if I don't want to be arrogant enough to say, well, they don't like because I'm black, but they, it's you, because it's personal. And when people like what it is, it's because it's Fernando. And I have a unique perspective, being a cat that writes, arranges, produces his own music and stuff. And I think different, and it'll probably take me, to 100 to get to the North Pole, where some of my contemporaries get to the North Pole at 30, because, it's basically, blues a lot of times is glorified cover bands, which I is insulting. Like, blues is the recording industry is 100 years old, and in 2021, so what, it's 103 years old, and people still going crazy over 12-bar blues. Is nothing else creative that you thought about? So
sure.
So I'm in a unique position because when people get me, they know that they're really getting something that's authentic, or something that's willing to grow, or something that's willing to evolve. And of course, no one has more respect for the tradition than I do. I've written on it extensively. I've booked people extensively. I booked Coco Taylor and Buddy Guy and Junior Wells and my brother and these different guys when I was 19 years old.
To come in and teach and assist.
I put on festivals.
Oh, okay, wow.
I have done everything successful that you can do with the blues. Film, play. I wrote a play that was supposed to run 2 days, ran 3 years. So we just brought it back for the 25th anniversary.
Wow.
Documentaries, books. I published in the Journal of Modern Music, scholars published, on faculty at Columbia College Chicago. I'll be teaching at Columbia in the morning. I'll be teaching pre-K through third graders in Chicago Public Schools about the blues. And from 1 to 2:30, I'm teaching college kids about blues. So,
right. So, I mean, you're in essence then carrying on this legacy.
So I say that they're doing, the reverence for, so because some people watch and they'll be like, all you got to do, da, 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 da. But man, it's always open season on the ideas. And you got to be, when they put you in a box or make your ashes ready for the river or the sea, that's going to be you in that box.
Yeah.
Ain't going to be the tribute guy, the guy who you tributing to. He ain't getting in that box.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me ask you this. I would assume, or I guess, that there's an argument about that true blues is originated. Is Memphis, Tennessee blues? Everybody the blues, or is it Chicago?
Everybody has a right to claim it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because remember, during that Great Migration, it's like a thing in Chicago. We have this thing, West Side and Chicago side. It's like a us versus them type thing, right?
Okay. Which is healthy.
Well, it's healthy.
Competition is healthy in general,
but
right?
in this way, it's very pejorative. Okay. Because the West Side of Chicago stereotypically is looked at as being less than.
Okay.
And Chicago, the South Side of Chicago is looked at as being more than.
Okay.
Now, remember what I said. You got two brothers. One gets off on Roosevelt Road and goes to the West Side, starts a family. One gets off on the South Side. So we're cousins.
Right.
So, we're no better than you. We're the same people, but that's the super psych. And you have to always be careful of that. And the same thing like in the music, you have to be careful of the super psych of somebody trying to tell you that what you're doing is not good enough so that they can come through the back door and do what you're doing and sell it.
Right.
So I feel good about the blues camp thing because we're giving kids an opportunity who may not even have been exposed to music at all, live music at all. It just happens to be through the lens of the blues, and at no cost.
That's fantastic. Alex is pulling up some of the stuff here. Now, these kids
up there too.
These kids have to try out for the blues camp, right?
Well, the kids that are in this picture, these are our super duper stars. They're from SMC, and those are like the little pre-K kids that we had the whole that year we had pre-K all the way through, I think, through 6th grade. And then at the end of the year, we worked with the 7th and 8th graders and stuff like that. Okay. So they were students that are very fortunate. They have a wonderful principal, Dr. Angela Tucker, and a wonderful staff that thought enough of them to give them exposure to this type of music. Fantastic. So all credit goes to that, goes to that team for giving us that opportunity.
Yeah, even now with running Life by Music, you see that when you can get to the kids, it's a great example of great human beings that are in those positions, the principal positions, the regional manager positions of the clubs that say, you know what, music is really important. Thank you guys for coming. Yeah. We had our meeting earlier this morning at the Boys and Girls Club doing a site check. It's like, thank you so much for coming. The kids are excited. We're excited.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's music. We're glad. The kids love it.
Yeah. We're glad to be here, man, because once again, Broken Record still that, that 4-year-old guy that's 60 now, so it's cool, man.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's great to have you here. And that, like, going back to NAM, I came and spoke to you right after you went up telling Jess, we got to go say hi to him, man. That was so cool. It was so informative. The way you were explaining how to run a summer camp in Canada was making so much sense. And like, hey, we run an organization in Vegas. And, I'm going to be in Vegas on Monday. Like, well, you know what? How about we have lunch? And some of the greatest things can happen over a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And
we're thankful because you're nothing unless you're something to somebody. So, when the music stops, we'll, on paper say, man, they were in Vegas. That gives credibility to the piece and the lives that you make. Like the kids that we're working with, there'll be kids that will be entry level or kids that didn't have any exposure. For some of these kids, we're going to be the first blues men that they've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And even for Ryan being right here, he might be the first rock and roll blues guys that they've seen.
Yeah. And that's so true. They're like, wait, are you on Spotify? Like, yeah, I'm on Spotify. Well, are you on YouTube?
Yeah,
I'm on YouTube.
Yeah,
I love it.
But then it's oh my god,
right?
See, I told you that was him.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I love that. Well, you had mentioned in one of the interviews that I was listening to, and it really was, just felt true to me, is that's how you live forever. Too,
yeah,
right.
Yeah. When people are able to talk about you and speak wonderful of you, and you touch, we had a basketball coach in the 8th grade. Well, when you graduated out of 8th grade, Andrew Sumlin. We called him Sums. I talk about Sums at least twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
The impact that man made on me and my little buddies, he kept the gang boys off us because we were Sums boys. We had a big gym with glass backboards. Little black kids playing with square glass backboards as children.
Mm-hmm.
So the pros would come up and play in that gym.
Yeah.
A regulation 90-foot court with bleachers and the whole bit. He taught us how to take care of the gym. And he would strip the floor. We had skating in the gym. So he would strip the floor every year. I don't know, maybe around August, close it down for a week or so. And he would put seal on the floor, 4 coats, and it would shine like glass.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like we were playing basketball at UCLA.
Wow.
When the fall came. And his grandson and I are tight, still tight today.
Mm-hmm.
But the lessons that he taught us and the friendships that he caused us as little ball players to bond with each other was something that one man was the glue to.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling somebody last week about him, and I said, we were talking about how like some of these little guys now, you can't even say anything to them without them crying or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we would be mad if Sums didn't signify on us. Because he talked to us just like we were boys, and Sums, I'll find out exactly how old he was, but he looked like he might have been 50. So he was a man.
Sure.
He had grandkids. His grandson was a year older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So he had been a man for a long time.
Yeah.
And he would talk about me and Chris like a dog. And I'm sure some of the other ball players, he would talk about like a dog. Matter of fact, he coached the first NBA player to get $1 million contract, which was LaRue Martin.
Okay.
And that was Sums that he played for.
Wow.
LaRue is much older than us. But yeah, so he was, so.
Well, I mean, that's, just kind of building a little bit on that story.
Mm-hmm.
You have these individuals that give other individuals these opportunities.
Right. And you become them. So
yeah, I'm
not just this guitar guy.
Mm-hmm.
Going through the lenses for you guys. I'm Sums. You know what I mean? I'm him.
Sure.
I'm my father, I'm my uncles. My Uncle Jack didn't have children of his own. And he was the one, when he took me to Gold Blast to get that guitar, he did that to keep Greg from killing me.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said, I'm gonna get you your own thing. And so
because you're messing around with all the other guitars, and Greg don't want you touching them, right?
Those are real guitars.
Right.
There was no touch-up shop back in 1969, 1968. I was 4 years old.
You drop that.
Yeah. So what do you? So you got to buy a guy a whole nother guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they cost $150 back then, but that might have been equivalent to $700-800 now because of a little kid doing what he wasn't supposed to do.
Sure.
And he stood back, and I don't know how tall you are the day before your 6th birthday, 4 feet tall, 5 feet tall. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking up their head because it's a department store. It's not, they're not making their money off guitars.
Yeah.
So they got these plywood guitars that are painted pretty, but they're painted, right? So they're hanging up on hooks or whatever. And I'm looking up. It's like I'm looking up at the Sears Tower. And he said, he's stepping back to cry because he knows he's going to get this one. He said, pick one. I pointed to that one. He said, what else you need? Now, he's a man. He knows that you need I was happy just getting that. So he made me get an amplifier and a little salesman, a little shoebox amplifier.
Uh-huh.
I got one of those a Native American type looking guitar straps and stuff.
Uh-huh.
A little bitty skinny guitar cord, and the box that it came. And I was in heaven. He didn't have to do that. He could. My parents entrusted me with him. There's a lot of other terrible things that he could have done to me as a child, but he didn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wasn't that type of dude, but he loved me and he treated me just like I was his son that he didn't have. He would pick me up from my sister's house after school, and he was a Lincoln driver. He drove Lincolns. My father drove Cadillacs, right? Mm-hmm. And I would just jump. I was a hyper kid. I would just jump from the back seat to the front seat, and my mother say, "Jack, don't let that boy tear up your car." But he enjoyed it because I was his son. He loved it. You loved him. I was his son for a week. He didn't have to. When I was sick in the middle of the night with asthma, he didn't have to deal with that. He got the good parts of the sun.
Right.
You see?
Uh-huh.
So I kind of like, you're part of that.
Sure.
So I might not be.
You wouldn't. Had he not got that guitar for you, you might not be sitting here right now,
might
right?
Not.
Your life
or it
could
might
be
have taken
completely
it long because my guitar became my Linus blanket.
Mm-hmm.
It became a part of my identity as a kid, And my brother Greg would try to show me how to put my fingers, and my fingers were all stiff. Now, starting playing at 4 years old, it probably didn't sound good until I was about 8. So I'm not saying I was killing at 4, but I thought I was, right?
Sure.
And, I didn't know how to tune a guitar, and I used to play with my thumbs too, my thumb. And so when Greg got married,
thumb over the top,
like Richie Havens. But I'd never seen Richie Havens play like that. But you adapt to whatever, because I wanted to play it because it was, I had Hot Wheel tracks and G.I. Joes and my guitar because that was, and I'm just analyzing myself now. So maybe that was my way of being grown as a little kid because the other little kids had toys, but they didn't have a guitar.
Right.
You see.
Right.
So I carry that with me into these classrooms and stuff, into these kids. So whatever love that they're getting from me tomorrow and the next day, Fernando Jones is the shell, but they're getting Uncle Jack.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting Sums.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting Greg. They're not going to get the meanness of Big Flo, but they're going to get the love of this. So, and that's what it's all about because music is meant to be shared. I don't even know if music is even meant to be sold.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a business, but I think it's meant to be shared.
Yeah.
And in an altruistic type kind of a bartering type kind of thing. And if I, pass on untimely or whatever, if I keep it in, it serves no good, right?
Yeah.
And just think some people have opened doors.
Well, and it can't live.
It can't live. We're just saying people have opened doors for you, and for me that we've never even met.
Yeah.
When you think about it, before we were sparks in our mother's eye, some dude or some woman was doing something in trade show and they were saying, you're crazy. And they did something, invented something, they inspired somebody. It may be 39 people of separation between you and that connection, but because of something that they did.
Yeah.
Because of Dan Smith believing in me, if I never have a gold record, I can say that Dan Smith believed in me and it's documented.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, I'm sure maybe you might not ever have a gold record,
Dixon,
but I can tell you that I'm sure one of those students that you taught will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And like I said, and it's not necessarily about the gold record, but I was just giving like a benchmark.
Sure.
Because when you have somebody like Willie Dixon who likes you for you, and the thing that he liked about me was that I was a songwriter. Because he, as a songwriter, when people would come to him, he was telling me they want something. And this was beyond the royalties and stuff like that he would get off the records and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, he liked me because I don't want to say he can learn something from me, but I didn't want anything.
Right.
When me and Chip, he had a garage and he had two, and I'm going to wrap this up because I'm talking long.
No, I love it.
There were two guys that lived in this neighborhood. It was a white dude and a black dude, and they might have been a couple years older than Chip and I. Mm-hmm. And they were like his sons. Those were his guys, you know.
Okay.
So he was glad to let them know that he had some Chicago cats in the house. So they came by and it was like we on Jeopardy. They asking us stuff, but what it was jockeying for position because they're like, man, we with you all the time. Now you done fell in love with these guys and stuff. But it was so cool, man. It was so cool because we had that mutual respect for each other. Yeah. And that let me know that I was somebody. If I could sit in a room with old man Dixon and be a pseudo student, but also be, you don't want to say an equal, but to be somebody that's in the same fraternity of songwriters who a guy respects what it is that you're doing. What else do you know? And Dan Smith he's like, hey, heaven, man. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because I love, one of my favorite things is, when we were all younger, my buddies, they'd want to go out, they'd want to party, right? They just want to go, what nightclub can we go to? If we were in New Orleans, if we're in Memphis, and I was traveling all the time doing trade shows, we'd go to these places and they just want to find the clubs, right? And I always just wanted to go to the craziest, dirtiest dive bar to find the great little hole in the wall band that's just jamming. Yeah. And when I'd get there, I'd sit at the bar, grab a beer, and you just close your eyes and you can feel the music, right?
Yeah.
Can you teach feeling the music?
Well, everybody's feeling is going to be their feeling, right? Mm-hmm. So, but you can,
because blues is feel, right?
But you can give a road to that street for them to build that house. So the feel would be building that house, right? So I can get them to the street to where they can visualize, okay, this is where my dream house is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Yeah, because and I'm gonna say this and wrap it on up, because the greatest songs have always yet to be written, and there's a missing chord out there somewhere, and whether we're conscious of it or not, we're probably always at least I am in perpetual pursuit of finding. So that's what keeps you going. And maybe they are only 12 notes.
Yeah.
Maybe they're 99 notes, and you haven't broken through the chamber to get the rest of them. But even if it is only 12, you're still going to keep going. You're going to use those 12, and you're going to keep looking and having fun with it. So I'm glad to be here, and I thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
And there will be a part 2.
Yeah.
So you
we're just building. This is a Life by Music and Fernando Jones and John Boyko and all this stuff. There's like we were talking about in this conversation, it's about synergy and special energies and
and I think that you guys with the stuff and the work that you guys are doing with kids, I think there's a huge future there, and we'd definitely love to have you back at any time that you're ready to come back, Fernando. Okay. You just let us know, and we're like, hey, we're having you on. Let's go. Let's go.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming
at home.
We've got the Blues Camp Vegas coming up, and we're stoked. And we're stoked to have you. So thank you so much for being guest number 4.
Man.
Appreciate that very much. And for everybody out there, blueskids.com. Go there, donate. It goes to a great cause, and this man is a stand-up act.
Could you imagine? I've been thinking about it. If the Democrats and the Republicans could connect the same way that a Gibson and a Fender guy connect,
right,
on the beauty of an E minor 7 chord.
Behind the scenes, they
all do.
Behind the scenes, they just like a lawyer and opposing counsel. They get along.
And Republicans,
when the lights come on, I hate you.
Yeah, but we're excited. We're gonna be jamming.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right. Right on.
Yeah. Great to see you. Thanks, Fernando.
Like and subscribe to the Ain't Done Yet podcast. Share with your friends. We'll keep coming because we ain't done yet.